this. Alright. Let's make it so old. Hey, Captain. Hello, Pablo. Hello, Robo Prinny Dude. Thank you. No, this is Chica, but I'm starting her off slim because I'm trying to treat her as if she just joined the FNAF crew, or the Fazbear crew. And then the idea is that I'm gonna have her be in charge of pizza tasting for like new recipes and flavors and stuff like that. This is such an old picture. Definitely gonna change up a few things. This does not need to be dark black. There we go. Hello, Armorous. Just do a week first. Yeah, that's the idea I had for this at least. I'm gonna try to give it the same type of tone that the helper unit or whatever the hell the announcer is called from sister location to guide Chica into what's happening. No, not Helpy. It's the announcer voice that you talk to from sister location. I forget if that announcer had like an actual name. Thank you for the resub, Gilmon 100. Question: who's your favorite out of the Berry family? You mean the Greenfield crew? That is a hard answer. Or a hard question to answer. See, the problem is I made them all, so... I guess if I had to say, it'd probably be Jam. Probably because I've experimented more with her than any of the others. But that's if I had to choose. If I didn't have to choose, then obviously I love all of them. But yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer. Because like they all have their own ups and downs, so it's like kind of hard to just say, oh, you know, this one has the better traits than the rest. It's like, no, that's not entirely true. But Jam has been the go-to for a lot of experimental art stuff because she's like simple enough but also difficult enough in design to practice whatever it is I want to practice with her on her. Yeah, like obviously the weight gain thing is like, you know, the universal gimmick, but they all have their own like unique thing about them. But yeah, I would say Blueberry Jam is my favorite in terms of being able to use her in almost anything to practice other techniques and stuff like that. Yeah, that's true. She got big old booty. Might put that a different way. Yeah, I'll do that just in case. I could separate her mouth a bit to make her look more machine, but I think it's fine the way it is. I think we kind of got the hint based on her other body parts. Plus, I can always say she got upgrades if her appearance needs to change, which would anyway, because her normal body would not be built for this. So it's like, don't worry, everyone, or don't worry, kids, or whatever the audience is. It's like, we've upgraded Chica, now she can have much more pizza. Does a robot even get something from the runner? I mean, at this point, you can literally just make up whatever bullshit and probably be true. It's like, oh, you know, the Monty slurry or whatever the fuck it's called from Security Breach that can say that that gives her weird properties that makes her body expand. I don't know. And if we're just going only with FNAF 1 characters, then you could just say either spiritual or spirit nonsense or remnant nonsense, or just say that the mechanical bodies are stretchy. Like, there's almost no wrong answer here. Or if you want to go off of the stupid books, it's Fazgoo. Yeah, like their focus now is AI, which honestly I think is dumb. But whatever at this point. I don't really think there's a wrong answer anymore. He's like, why did this happen? It's like, just say yes. Because it's either going to be AI, ghosts, or, I don't know, something to do with Afton. Oh yeah. Because, like, again, the science fiction stuff was a bit of a red flag when they first introduced it in Sister Location, but it wasn't that bad because they at least did a okay job with the material that they had going all the way to Ultimate Custom Night. But I would say after, because like even in Help Wanted it was okay with the whole AI thing, because it was like, okay, it's corrupting a person to turn into a new villain, which was going to be Vanny, and that part was fine. It was all the way until Security Breach where they dropped the ball hard, because Vanny literally did nothing relevant to the story, and she got shafted hard, and then it just boiled down to, you know, Afton coming back. But then they decided, okay, we're definitely not going to do that ending because everybody got pissed that Afton came back. So they took whatever ending made sense and then tossed in the Mimic. And then the Mimic is a boring character to begin with because there's nothing interesting about that character. It's just, okay, I copycat other characters. And that's it. And then I guess I want to murder people because my creator beat me out of frustration of the loss of their own child. That's it. There's nothing interesting about that character. And then now, if they really, really, really jump harder off jumping the shark, it's going to probably be either the Mimic is just going to copy more villain characters to justify whatever the hell it's doing, and now when anybody thinks that, oh, it was like Afton or something, for example, they're just going to be like, nope, it was the Mimic. And then anything else after that is probably just going to be AI robots making more AI robots to do, you know, fucking Skynet shit. And that's basically it. Tasty Paste, no doubt, awakened to Maid's Awakening. I was into it way before Tasty Paste, but Tasty Paste didn't help either. Tasty Paste just confirmed that I was into it even harder. Because, God, when did that episode air? I was like, what, 10 or so when that came out? Let me see. Which was Quack Pack, Tasty Face. When did that come out? That came out in 96. So I was 8 when that came out. So yeah, that definitely didn't help. Because like I grew up in the 90s, and the 90s did everything. To be fair, that whole entire episode was a dream. But still. At least I think it was a dream. I'm pretty sure it was a dream. I'm like 100% sure it was a dream. Unless I'm thinking of like another episode with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Which probably could have been a thing. Like, I'm pretty sure it was a dream. I'll have to like look it up later. But yeah, like that episode was great. But yeah, episodes like that just like did not help me in my childhood. It was like, gee, how did I become a furry? Well, I grew up in the 90s. So practically everything was furry related. And then every cartoon in existence basically does all of the same kinks and themes, or whatever you want to call them. So there's literally no escaping it. Unless you just avoided cartoons altogether. Or at least wasn't immersed in so many different cartoons all at once. Because I watched like almost anything. If I didn't see it, then I probably just didn't come across it. That's somehow. Because it was really hard for me to not have experienced a cartoon, even like maybe not the entire series or season or something, but I'm pretty sure I at least watched a few episodes of something. Whether it be like King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, or Mask, or you know, Transformers, Rescue Rangers, whatever. Somehow I've come across them. Even older stuff like Betty Boop and all that, which again, all of those cartoons did the same shit. They did weight gain, they did inflation, they did vor. They all did the same thing. So whenever people are like, how'd you get into this? It's like, well, here you go. It was unavoidable. Okay, I think we're done. I just banner on a bid. But yeah, stuff like that, it was just inevitable. I don't know what font that is, so we're just gonna have to try to pick the closest I can think of. I just gotta find it. What was it called? There's one font in particular. Oh, here we go. Let's try this in all capital. Yeah, that seems fine enough. Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a funny thing. And then there was when she was Super Babs, and she ate all the cake and stuff. Yeah. See? Like at some point, if you watched just regular cartoons back in the day, you were just bound to come across that shit. Like there was like practically no way of avoiding it. Like even in cartoons today, like they still do the exact same jokes and gimmicks. So yeah, it's unavoidable. You're going to see it. The only thing that matters after that point is just whether or not you get interested in it. That's pretty much what it boils down to. 10 seems to be good enough. Because I remember one of like the earliest memories was like I think it was Goofy, and like he was like tending to a zoo, and one of the characters, at least I think it was either a zoo or a circus, and one of the characters puts a hose in his pants and it makes the pants inflate with water. So there was that. Then there was Donald pretending that he fell into the fountain of youth and pretended to be a baby. So there's that. Obviously there was all the alluring tension that a lot of female characters would give in different varying shows and episodes and stuff like that. What else? I mean, at this point, it's just running down a checklist. Just like, all right, female character, is she smart? Can she? And it's funny because like people complain like, oh, we have all these female characters who are always damsels in distress. I'm like, are you sure? Because I've seen a bunch of female characters who can take care of themselves. Because you have like Gadget, you have Sally Acorn, you have, I mean, Daisy could take care of herself technically, depending on the storyline. Same thing for Minnie. It just depended on what story we were going with. Then you have, what was her name? Where we're going like, if we're also going with like game characters, Crystal technically could have basically done the whole game on her own if it wasn't transitioned into Star Fox, because it was her game originally. And then later on, you know, Princess Peach could take care of herself and stuff like that. So I mean, it wasn't like there was a strict rule that female characters couldn't take care of themselves. It was just, hey, this is the game we wanted to make. Done. And then obviously Samus. Passion baddies. But yeah, like for me, I was gone a long time ago before I even knew what furries were. Like I didn't even know what furries was even a term until like high school, and I think I was in senior year when I first was asked that, because one of my friends who was a freshman at the time, she was like, "Are you a furry?" And I was like, "What is that?" And she explained it to me. I was like, "Yeah, sure, sounds about right." It was weird though, because she was the one that told me that Final Fantasy Versus 13 would turn into Final Fantasy 15 like over a decade or so before that even was a thing. And I always ask her, like, how the hell did you know that was going to happen? Clearly she's from the future and she just won't tell me. But yeah, really hard to make me not interested in different themes because I've seen everything. I mean, you can even make, I mean, roboticization is a thing. Just turn characters into robots or cyber versions of themselves. Then you got slime, inflation, self-vor, or whatever it's called, force feeding, and other stuff. Flexibility is a thing. Feet. You just make a list and have fun. Like, that's basically all it is. You just look at a list, take out all the things you don't like, and then whatever's left over, just draw or write or whatever the rest. And you'll be fine. Into fat before getting into furry art. Yeah, and that's fine, because there's been fat art of non-furry characters, so that's not even an issue either. And then there's been fat characters that weren't furries, so again, that just makes it fine the way it is, honestly. And then honestly, if you like get into furries after that fact, then it's just adding. All it's doing is just adding to it. Because then you have more variety. You have even more variety. Because now it's like, okay, now I can take this parrot character and make them fat, or an elephant and make them bigger, or a squirrel and make them big. Like it's just gonna keep going. It's just gonna be endless ideas. Yeah, basically just push the limit. And then there's so much cartoon reference of characters putting on weight or eating each other or whatever. So yeah, whatever you like, just get inspired and go with it. Make some art. As long as you're not hurting anybody in real life, it doesn't matter. I still laugh that people had issues with Tom and Jerry for a while because they thought it was too violent. And then there's like another similar cartoon with, what was it? I think it was like Herman and the Nieces or something like that. What was it called? Because I always forget that show's name in particular. Yeah, Herman and Catnip. There we go. Yeah, I knew his name was Herman. At least I got his name. Catnip is the one that I always forget. And in some cases, they were worse than Tom and Jerry, so that's what made it funnier. But Tom and Jerry would show themselves getting like sliced in half and stuff like that. Or like at the beginning of the first Tom and Jerry movie, they show Tom and Jerry sword fighting, and at one point, Jerry cuts Tom numerous times, and Tom looks at himself. He's like, nothing's wrong, and he like sticks his tongue out, and then all of a sudden, Tom just falls to pieces like ham. And I'm just like, whoa. And you know, they're showing like the red and all that, so it was pretty. It wasn't like bloody or anything, but it was definitely just like, okay, that happened. And that's like in the first few minutes of the movie, like not even like the actual story, but like the credits. Because for the most part, Tom and Jerry were pretty tame throughout the movie because they didn't really do too many antics because it was following a storyline. So I guess they just put all those gags at the beginning of the movie just to have the spirit of them doing shit to each other. Yeah, exactly. Itchy and Scratchy was what parents thought Tom and Jerry was. It's like, oh my god, it's such violence and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, you guys have no idea. And that's always been my stance for a lot of cartoons that I've watched back in the day, because like I would just like I would hear about so many things of people like, you know, freaking out about whatever game or whatever show and all that. Then I eventually see it, and I'm just like, really, this is what everybody was tripping out over. And of course, you know, it could have also been, you know, the times and stuff like that, and you know, it depends on when I saw the material. But still, because kind of like the hot coffee mod for San Andreas. The only way you could even see what was going on in that scene is if you hacked the game and then moved the camera. And even when you could see it, there wasn't anything showing because the characters were still wearing clothes and stuff like that. Like the most you could argue was the characters had animations that were performing the act. But again, normally in that game you could not see what they were doing. You would have to actually hack the camera to do so. But parents freaked out over that, thinking that the game had like visual, you know, sexual content that a kid could just, you know, find or could just experience normally. And so the game got rebranded as a rated AO game, which most markets don't carry. And so they had to like recall the game, remove the scene from the game entirely, and then put it back out as a rated M game. Exactly. They were clutching hard on those pearls. But it was just funny, realizing what people freaked out over, and it wasn't even that big of a deal in comparison to other things. And even then, those things weren't that big of a deal either. Like Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was a thing that was definitely questionable on if it was for kids or not, based on the content that it had. But it was on Nickelodeon, so... But then again, Nickelodeon had a lot of cartoons that were like borderline mature, like Rocko's Modern Life. Hell, even Rugrats had their moments of being like, okay, is this actually a kid show? Because some of these topics or whatever don't seem like something the characters should be knowing, or at least have full knowledge on. Although it made sense in some cases, like Angelica knowing what a lawsuit was because of her mom, so that made sense. But it was still funny. Oh yeah, Powder Toast Man was funny. Exactly. CJ Wynn made sure he got that coffee. It's like, CJ, what are you doing? It's like, you know, I'm getting my coffee. Okay, I mean, why are you doing that? Do you need to take your clothes off? Like, no, I'm good. Still had his clothes on. Got that coffee. It was just the funniest part that they're freaking out over that action being in the game, but the characters were still wearing clothes, so it wasn't like you're seeing anything happening. No one was naked. There wasn't like any genitals showing. It was just the action movement of the characters. But again, you could not see that normally in the game because you had to hack it in order to see it. The most you would hear was just sounds. That was it. Like normally in the game, that was all you could hear or see and hear in the game was just sounds because the camera was outside of the home. So that's what made it funny. Flash forward to Mass Effect, exactly. You got Mass Effect and then you got Baldur's Gate, and I'm just like, huh, that's funny. You people freaked the fuck out when we had this stuff in older games. Why isn't anything happening now? But then they'll still go after like games that they think are air quotes made for children, which is bullshit at this point because it's like, look, kids aren't the ones spending the money to get these things, adults are. So either parents need to parent and actually know what the fuck they're buying for their kids, or shut the hell up because you're the one that bought it for your kids, so why are you freaking out? You're the one that didn't do the research on it. And in some games I think are not for kids, but they just appear that way because it got popular and kids got into it, and it makes it think that it's a kid's game. Because like FNAF was definitely not a kids series in the beginning. It just kind of became that due to its popularity. Because I'm pretty sure in Sister Location, having your insides scooped out and seeing like a bloody splat on the screen wasn't intended for kids. But I do understand why it went the way it did. Because that, I mean, honestly, like let's just say cream filled for some reason became popular with kids, God knows why. Then I would honestly, I would probably do the same thing, but I would do the best I could to retain what it's supposed to be. But if you want to capitalize on it, you make fucking toys and stuff like that, because that's what you should be doing. Because come on, let's be honest, everybody wants apricot. Oh yeah, like not having a weight slider was just like, what the fuck, really? Yeah, exactly. If a parent buys little Timmy a fucking adult-based media or whatever, that's not the artist's fault. That's the dumbass parent or whoever's fault for buying it for the kid without thinking. Yeah, that was a pretty creepy scene. I just wish Sister Location was what's the best way of putting it? Because scary is one thing, because it kind of just that's a bit subjective in some cases. Although just a character walking towards you is exactly scary. Because at least FNAF 1 and 2 actually had decent jump scares that were actually scary. 3 was definitely not scary because all it is a character walking towards you. 4 was a lot better. 5, which is Sister's Location, was just pretty much the same hop in front of you scenario, although Ballora had a pretty good one. 6 was whatever. Like the jump scares for that were kind of meh. 7 I will excuse just for having so many characters, because the jump scares in that game were not that good either, but there was like 50 characters, so I can excuse that. Hey Alex. Unsettling, yeah, that's a good word for it. I don't think the movie's gonna bomb, honestly. For the most part, it looked like they took out some of the red eyes. I don't know if they took out all of them because the second trailer shows at least Foxy having red eyes, but then they also show him without it. So I don't know if the red eyes is just going to be a thing that the characters transition to have, like they'll just, if it becomes like a thing that happens on and off, or if it's just some scenes haven't had the changes yet. But I don't think the movie's gonna bomb. I think it's gonna do well, especially if it's just treated as its own universe thing, so that way it's not getting contradictions with its own lore, which would honestly be the best idea, to just be its own thing. But yeah, I think it'll do well. Like, from the looks of it, it'd have to really try to not be good. I will go see it, so if anything, I'm going to go see it, one, to support Scott, because, you know, indie creator who got to where he's gotten, you know, he's definitely earned it, and 2, because Chica, because, you know, Chica's my favorite. Oh, perish the thought. I mean, I give him credit for trying to make it all make sense. I just personally think that once he started doing sci-fi, that's when it started falling apart. Because like once you treat it as like ghost stuff in the beginning, I mean that's all you really needed. It was just like, okay, you're in a haunted location, your animatronics are gonna freak out after a while. Makes sense. Done. Like it was established, we're good. But then the problem was that he tried to explain everything. And then that's the part that was starting to screw him over, is because when you try to explain every little thing that happens, then you start, stepping on your own foot. It's like, all we needed to know is that it was haunted, and that was it. Like, explaining the backstory for stuff was fine, like, just, learning how certain characters died was fine. But then trying to make it look like a mad scientist trying to find immortality and all that, that was the part that was like, we didn't need any of this. 100% couldn't get hammered. But yeah, like if Creamfield for some fucking reason became popular with kids, I'd be like, alright, make toys. I would probably have Jam be like a put together character, so that way her ass would be in like one pack of toys. It's like, oh, you need Jam's ass, it's in, I don't know, Apricot set. There you go get it. And then, I don't know, Apricot comes with Douglas or something. Mouse pads with stuff. Oh yes, big old booty to rest your hand on. And Jam wouldn't mind having her cheeks heal your hands. It's like, oh, your wrist hurts. Here, rest it on my butt. He's like, oh, that feels much better, Jam. Thank you. Exactly. Which fits Jam anyway, like it's not like she wouldn't help. And Jam's pretty oblivious of things that are alluring. Like she understands people attraction to things, but not why. Because she doesn't think that far about it. It'd be like, oh, Jam, that guy's into you, and she's like, really? It's like why? And then she'll just boil it down to, it must be their need for reproduction or something like that. Like she'll just boil it down to like science or something. Or like a basic instinct. I still love that scene from Prison School, where the guy is trying to explain why ass is more attractive, and he gets so deep into his explanation that he just starts crying. It's just like, Jesus. And the director or whoever the hell that guy was, he was like, it's okay, you're clearly an ass man. And he hugs him and stuff just to calm him down. I was like, okay, I need to sit down and watch Prison School, because I've only seen that one scene, and I'm like, all right, I gotta watch this at some point. I don't know if the anime finishes like the manga, but it's definitely something I gotta check out. Honestly, if you explain that to Jam, she would just accept that as an actual answer. Because she'll just be like, "Oh, you must be tired from your long day of hard work and stuff like that, or your stressful day," and she would just let you use her ass for comfort. Like she wouldn't think of anything like attraction and all that if you explained it that way. She would just perfectly accept that as an answer. And then she would just look at her siblings, going like, "See, it's not about wanting to mate." And then her siblings would just glare at you, going like, "Uh-huh." The rest of her siblings would probably just think you're bullshitting, but Jam would just take it as an actual answer. Yes, she will. Because the idea for this picture is that this is Chica first joining the Fazbear crew, and she's being given the role as pizza taster or cook or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, I'm like glad to be here, and I'll do my best." And then you just watch her get worse over time, and that the company would have to make upgrades to her for to keep up with her constantly eating pizza. And it starts off like, a little wholesome where she's like, "Oh, start off with pepperoni and get a little chub and stuff like that." But then she, like, I want to say by like the second pick, because this is pick 0. But I want to say like the second pick is where she's like having complications because she's like too full already. And then that's when the company's like, "Don't worry, Chica, we'll give you the necessary upgrades to continue your pizza tasting." And then that's when she starts getting bigger and thicker throughout the rest. That's the idea, at least. That's what I have planned in my head. Because I'm trying to base it off of like the jokingness that the announcer usually has throughout the games. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm trying to keep it in character, universe in character, with how the Fazbear company would tackle this kind of situation. Whereas like, "Oh, Chica's reached her capacity. Don't worry, we'll fix that." And definitely just make her bigger. And then I don't know, change materials so that way her stomach is more stretchy. And then, I don't know, maybe by the end of it, she's either corrupt enough to be like, "I finished all the pizza. Is there anything else here?" And she, like, licks her lips or something. Or just say that the company just ordered, like, another round of however many pizza she wants. And then, like, another idea is where she, like, gets through all the normal toppings and flavors that you would normally get, and then they just start making shit up. Where it's like, here's chocolate covered pizza. And Chica would be like, "Really? Is this an actual topping?" And it's like, "Yes." And then it's like, "Here's cupcake sprinkles and a shoe." Or something, I don't know. Something weird. Yeah, I was kind of surprised they didn't do that, where because she had that trash bag stuck in, shoved into her stomach, so I was curious if that was gonna lead to anything, and then they didn't do anything with her. So now I'm just like, okay, yeah, here's my head idea or mental idea is like she just keeps cramming shit into her trash bag, and she just has this bloated, garbage-filled bag that she's dragging around. Like, that was my immediate thought when I saw all that. There was an advantage to making a fat robot, but for the life of me, I don't see it. Chica Blob doesn't. Yeah, like, I can see it working. You just gotta make it fit the universe that you're shoving it into. And they've already floated the idea of a already fat Chica from the Freddy in Space game, so it's not like people haven't seen it already. Plus, you know, artists just make it make sense for the game that you put her in. Which I'm still interested in why Chica was food crazed to begin with due to her corruption. So I'm like, okay, what is making her think she needs to eat, or like, what is the purpose of that? But again, they didn't do anything with her because, like, for some reason you can fix Chica in Ruined, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing that correlates with that. It's like there's nothing you get for doing so. There's no reward. And no, I don't think achievements in game are rewards, or like, well, they're not necessarily in game, but I don't think achievements are rewards for games. I think it's just an arbitrary thing to make you think you accomplished something that wasn't even in the game, really. Yeah, there was Freddy in Space 2 where there's a boss called Already Ate Chica. Let me find it. That is not what I typed. Yeah, there it is. I'll put it on the screen. Save. Gotta wait for a moment because my computer's asleep. Or my drive is asleep. I'll just put that there. Alright, so let me grab it. Yeah, this is one of the bosses. Yeah, like I could see them like using Chica as a test to see what they can and can't do, and then eventually they're like, okay, at least we learned this, but we're probably not going to use it. But then, like, I don't know, Chica's like already messed up from all the testing, and that's why she keeps cramming food in her face or something. Like, I can see that happening. And in most cases that makes sense. Like, you definitely want to test out your products to make sure, you know, stress testing to make sure what they can and can't do. So like if you were to make them do something for whatever promotion, you already know whether or not they can take it. So that makes sense. But definitely Chica just going hog wild on pizza all the time was definitely like, we kind of fucked up, and now she's stuck doing this. Well, have you tried resetting her? Yeah, but it seems like her memory banks are not forgetting this, and it seems to carry over no matter how many times we swap out her chips. So they can't. It's like a bug they can no longer explain because they fucked her up so much. But again, that's if you decide to make it work. You just have to make it make sense. Because you'd think that after Chica got broken in Security Breach, that she would just like stop trying to cram food in her mouth because there's nothing to put there. But nope, she kept going, which is fine. Exactly, the bugs become a feature. Do you know how I see the 7 deadly sins? That kind of works to a degree. The only problem is that they're all scattered throughout various games. and it doesn't always fit because there's more than one. There's more than a set of characters, so you'd have to account for them too. And Lust would also include um, Funtime Chica, because she's definitely all up in your face trying to get pics and stuff. Unless you just want to say that's vanity or something. New Chica bounce house. Alright, a little bit more shading on her, and then I think we can move on to the next step. But yeah, like, the sins don't make sense only because there's way too many characters to account for it all. And some characters would likely overlap. But it definitely could work if rearranged a bit. Or if the characters were rearranged, not the scenes. Close this for now. Okay. But yeah, I think I obviously think FNAF's peak was the ghost stuff. And when Scott tried to say it was, well, when his first idea was saying it was a dream, that's when it was like, which we'll never actually know if that was a bad thing because he didn't go through with it. But introducing the science fiction and AI stuff was definitely, for me at least, where it was going downhill. Because, and this is probably just because of knowing or of seeing past content that has done stuff like that, knowing where it was going. Because especially with the whole mimic thing, once you introduce a character like that, then the excuse can just be, oh, it was the mimic, over and over and over and over until that gets old. And I just find it strange that they had an extremely good idea with Vanny being the new villain, and then they completely dropped the ball on her. It's like, how did you set everything up so well and then fuck up that hard? And obviously one of the reasons was because the developers kept cramming in more stuff into the game that wasn't necessary. And they ended up screwing themselves over. Yep, I'm doing well. Yeah, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely excited for the movie. I honestly hope that, well, I mean, this is probably not going to happen, but I hope that there would be a rated R version, since the creators of Megan also had a rated R version. But I also understand if there isn't. So I'm not gonna let that ruin the experience and all that. It'll just be in the back of my mind. It's like, man, if only this was a little bit more violent. Honestly, if, like, aside from maybe the story, that would probably be the only other thing that would probably take a point off of it for me. But that's if I'm gonna be really nitpicky about it. But yeah, exactly, Armor. Like the whole, like, saying, because all it's gonna boil down to is the mimic copying Afton for some fucking reason. Because we have no idea if he's actually seen what Afton has done, or just, finds Afton's information and starts copying that or some bullshit. And then it's just going to end up being, okay, the mimic is now making killer robots, and now we're going to have these weird altered versions of Freddy and blah 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 blah, and it's just going to become like, okay, so the Mimic's the villain, but I feel nothing towards the Mimic because the Mimic is just a robot that copied others. Like, there's no personality. And then they're going to try to give him personality by making him copy Afton or whoever he decides to copy. But it's just going to feel empty because it's like there's nothing to work off of other than he just copies people. It's just going to feel uninspired and not original. Yeah, like that's like that's like one of more of the people in the times type of thing where it's kind of like when people try playing old Nintendo games and they'll make a comment like, oh, the graphics aren't that good, and it's kind of like, and obviously people who've grown up with those games are thinking, what do you mean the graphics aren't that good, the game looks fine. But you'll just have people who just don't understand how, or not even how that works, but just more like the artistic value of it, and they're perfectly fine to have their opinion, but it's just going to be one of those times where you're just going to not be able to really agree on that, because obviously you'll have people who play Security Breach first, and then they'll look back at like the first few games and be like, oh, how come I can't run around or stuff like that, not understanding where the games came from. So is this one of those things where there's a valid argument, but there's like nothing really you can say for and against it other than just artistic taste? That depends on the storyline of the movie, because I think the movie is like, I mean, obviously the movie is going to be its own thing, so I don't know if the animatronics catching you and shoving you into a suit is 100% going to be what they do. They might do it to some characters, maybe, or they might just put you on a contraption. And as for the face grinder thingy, I don't know. For all I know, that could be a dream, or that could be like an experimental thing that wasn't finished, but they're trying to use it anyway. That could be it. Yeah, like everyone has their opinions of what games they like. I just happened to grow up with a lot of older games as they were coming out. And then I had family members who had the Atari, so there was that. And then, playing arcade games, so I'm aware of the changes of graphics and stuff like that, and, I'm used to it. So it's kind of hard to tell anybody how to think about a certain game when they didn't grow up with how they were. And, the limitations and stuff like that. And you know what? That's perfectly fine, thinking games like that were too real, because honestly, nothing will ever beat your own imagination, because your own head will make the situations way more realistic than the game itself, or the media itself. And that's kind of like one of the other aspects for Five Nights at Freddy's, where it's like, as you're playing the games, your mind is like trying to fill in the gaps for other things, and that's what's making the game more creepy. Especially if you play the first one. In the first game, there's this like very, very, very little music going on, because it's mostly just ambient noises. And without knowing, well, I mean, obviously it's the first game, like you have very limited information of that game, and your mind is just filling in the gaps. And then it's only when you like look for deeper into the game where you see like the newspaper clippings that tell you the story of the game, that's how you have any idea of what the hell is even going on. Yeah, because all you really need is little information and like some form of motivation of what your character is doing, and then you let your mind fill in the rest. And that's what makes it interesting. especially if you're like very limited on noises and stuff like that. Like you only have like mild music depending on where you're going. Like let's just say your character walks into like a grand hallway or like a ballroom, then you can have like a little bit of music going on and some ambient noises. But the moment you have your character walk into like, you know, a basement or a cellar or something, or like a, you know, a engineering room and all that, then you start limiting the noises to like just little clings and steam noises and stuff like that, or something scurrying around, and it just fucks with you more because your head is starting to fill in the gaps. It's like, oh shit, is something in here with me, type of thing. And for a moment you're probably thinking, okay, it's just a bunch of shit making noises, and then that's when you run into the big trouble. It's kind of like fuck, what was the name of that game where you're playing as like military people, but or like SWAT or something, and you're like hallucinating and shit? Was it just called Fear? Can't remember if that was the game, because I haven't played it. I've only seen a bit of it, but that game did a good job of like fucking with you. There was like a Nintendo game that did the same thing too, where if your sanity meter got too high, your character started seeing shit. But yeah, like that's what the earlier FNAF games did a decent job at, by having you like messing with your own head. Cause like for example, after playing the one with slow motion, I have no idea honestly. Because like with FNAF 2, for example, the first time players saw Toy Chica standing in the hallway, their first thing was putting on their mask, because they had already played the first game, and their first instinct was to put on the mask when they saw Chica, because they were already told that the mask protects them from whatever. And I'm pretty sure Toy Bonnie was one of the few characters in the beginning of the game that makes you put on the mask and see how the mask works and all that, because, you know, he'll get in front of you and he'll disappear. But then when you see Toy Chica in the hallway, your first instinct is to put on the mask, and you keep flashing the light, and you keep noticing that she's not moving, and she's just standing there, and your mind already filled in the blank thinking that she was going to catch you or whatever, not realizing that she was going to go elsewhere. And then that's her main method of getting you. So that's how your mind can fuck with you in games like that, and that's like the good part about it. Just let your imagination be used against you. Exactly. Like I think was it Amnesia? I think it was like at the very beginning of Amnesia where I think you see like you walk into the building. It's like I think it's at the very beginning of the game, and you come across a body that's been hung, and you see it and you're like, oh shit, and then you walk towards it and it starts fucking freaking out and stuff like that, and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, exactly. Just fuck with people. That's like the main thing you gotta do, honestly. All right, let me grab another song. Let's go a little further down. Let's try this one. Yeah, like the biggest problem that Security Breach has is that being able to run away from the enemies, and you have so much space to do so, just takes away the whole fear from it. Because the Steel Wool developers were trying to make it like Aliens, like the Alien Isolation game, or like Amnesia or whatever. And the problem is that they did too much instead of pulling back. And like Ruin was like a good example of what Security Breach should have been. It should have just been more linear and claustrophobic, and give you like very limited room to avoid the enemies if possible. But normal Security Breach was like, it's like, oh no, this creature's heading right for me, guess I'll just run away. And you have like way more than enough options to do so. And then Security Breach had the problem of giving you cheap moments of getting caught and all that because of the security drones. And because they were just put in there because obviously you could just outrun all the other enemies, and so the drones were put in to make it just slightly more difficult for you to move around. And then of course bullshit you by making a animatronic teleport behind you as soon as you get sighted. Matt Pop. Yeah, exactly. Like you couldn't always just do a cheap way of hiding. And that sometimes happens in Security Breach where you can hide in a spot and a character can find you if they look in your hiding spot. But even then there's a way to get past that too, where as soon as the animatronic is about to look into your spot, you could take that moment to actually jump out, and they're stuck in a animation where you have a brief moment of invincibility, and you can just get past them. And once you learn that, it's like, okay, there are very, very, very few ways for the animatronics to actually catch you. Oh yeah, the Markiplier thing was funny as hell. Like Markiplier Markiplier is what got me into FNAF in the first place, because my friend showed me Markiplier, and I was just chilling at a friend's house, drinking wine coolers, and watching him play the first game, and I was just getting like sucked into it because I thought the game was interesting, and then Markiplier's commentary was just making it better, especially when he first sees Golden Freddy, and he starts freaking the fuck out, and I'm just like, okay, this is interesting now, because I want to know more about this. So that was definitely Markiplier is definitely one of the best creators to have play that series, because he definitely adds a lot to it. But yeah, that part in Security Breach was funny as fuck. Like, Freddy, you bitch! No, don't wait your turn. He just keeps going like, Freddy! The fact that he managed to run most of the daycare room in circles, trying to avoid Monty, just made it funnier. It's just like, Freddy is just like, not now, Gregory, I have to go save Gregory. Just runs right fucking past him. That shit was funny. I do not like Gregory as a character. They've given him way too much ability. Especially in Ruin, where he's just like, oh, this program was meant to do blah 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 blah. And he's all like able to hack robots and stuff, and I'm just like, he's becoming a Gary Stu type character, and he's just very uninteresting and boring. Like, he was interesting in the first trailers of the game because they made him just seem like a vulnerable kid, which he should have just been. But now they're adding him to like, oh, he's a really skilled hacker and stuff. And I'm just like, why? Why do we need that for this character? Oh yeah, I saw that when Chica was already in there. Yeah, I've seen that clip. I don't understand, but by all accounts, it shouldn't be possible. And like, it would have been great to have seen the security breach characters before they were corrupted. Because you only briefly see their personalities at the very beginning of the game. Ruin did a good job to flesh out Roxy a little bit more, but that just made you want to see them normal even more. Yeah, exactly. Emperor's New Groove. That was a good movie. I was watching clips of Kronk trying to sneak around. He's like, dun, 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 dun. Same thing for Peter when he was doing that to get Meg's reporting on Luke Perry or whoever it was. No, I think it was Mayor West. Because Peter was the one that did the stuff about Luke Perry. I've probably seen some of those animations, yeah. I know I've seen a lot, so chances are I've likely seen some of them. Yeah, those animations make me want to try to do something in 3D when I have the time. So, maybe someday. I just gotta learn how to model again, because it's been a long... Well, learn how to model in Blender, because I used to know how to model in other stuff, but it's been ages now. It's been like over 10 years since I modeled anything. So, brush up on that, learn rigging again, and then go from there, I guess. Learn editing. Yeah, Emperor's New Groove is a really good movie for how they were doing the jokes and stuff like that. Especially when it came to Kronk, and he had his angel and devil. And he's like, hey, what's going on? Oh, well, Yzma told me to do this. And then Yzma's looking at him, and she looks like Kuzco going like, what the fuck? He's like, you seeing this? And Kuzco's like, I don't know. That shit was funny. Okay, so I got that. But yeah, I enjoy most Disney cartoon movies. Some of the newer ones, I'm just kind of like, meh. Like I don't dislike 3D, but I feel 3D kind of lost some of that spark that 2D animation gives me. Especially once I learned that Bolt was originally supposed to be 2D and then they went 3D. And I was like, really? And then I saw all the concept art and I was like, damn, this would be fun. Like, Bolt was still a good movie, but it would have been nice to see it in 2D. But then again, that was like one of those days where it was starting out. So, who knows? Maybe Bolt would have been better if it had come out nowadays. But that's all up in the air. But yeah, like even in Bolt had a bit of weight gain in there too. So yeah, exactly. Like it's always going to be shoved in somewhere. Whatever kink or whatever fetish that somebody's into. Like Incredibles with Elastigirl's ass. It's like, was that even necessary? No, but it was there. And all that did was just make us like the character even more. Templeton's feast at least made sense because he had been talking about that about food stuff the entire fucking time. And then when he finally got to indulge himself, then it all just made sense. But random characters just doing it, you're just like, this wasn't even necessary, but it's here. But yeah, Templeton's was definitely a good one. Okay, I was like, am I doing this? Hello, local innocent heretic Joe. Okay, something's wrong here. Okay, maybe not. Maybe it's just the way I did this. Because I was like, oh, okay, I know what I did wrong. Okay, I was like, why is this not coming out the way I wanted to? I was like, okay, I know what I did wrong. Because I was doing a different step on the wrong layer. Okay, I was like, something's wrong here. But that's why I do everything in a certain order, because that way I'll know if I'm messing up. See, this is why you have a system. Yeah, like I like the flow of different art styles that help out a lot to be artistic. It doesn't have to be just straight 3D. And okay, our characters have wide eyes and and big teeth and and a big mouth and that's kind of it. Maybe some big hands for certain characters, but that's like the extent of style. And then either the character is really round and bubbly or they're just square shaped and that's kind of it. Whereas Spider-Verse did a really good way of being both 3D, comic booky, and like it's like a bit of 2D kind of mixed in, which makes it all work even better. And hopefully that makes people have like be a lot more open with their style uses for when it comes to 3D. Because there's nothing wrong with 3D, but a lot of it becomes pretty samey. And you start forgetting who worked on what because they all look the same. Imagine if FNAF characters in Charlie or the Chocolate Factory. I could imagine okay, if we were gonna make them still violent, I could imagine like some of the Chocolate Factory contest winners like running off to do their own thing while ignoring Willie's warnings and stuff like that, and then the animatronics show up and like kill the kids or at least harm them in some like really messed up way. So like for example, with the kid who gets stuck in the tube or whatever, I could see like one of the animatronics shoving him into the water, and then that's when he gets sucked up and stuck in the tube. Or have like Bonnie give the experimental gum to a kid and make them become a blueberry. Chica could use the teleporter thing to turn somebody into like a piece of chocolate, or at least fuse them with the bar of chocolate, and then she'll eat the chocolate or something. Like I could see that working in some horror aspect, but that just depends on how far you're willing to take it. And then I don't know, Freddy is the one that puts out the soda that makes you float, and then he just stands there as you're floating towards the ceiling fan. Like, that'd be pretty interesting if they went that route. And I'm sure there's like, and like for the tunnel scene, you like when they're showing like the chicken getting his head cut off and all that, you could even flash like Golden Freddy's face for a brief moment or something, just to have that character show up briefly. Or even have Afton show up as like shoving the kids into the suits or something, just to kind of hint to how the animatronics became haunted. Like, there are various ways you can make that work. It just kind of boils down to how violent you actually want it to be. Or hell, you could you could say Willy Wonka was Afton. Like, that could work too. I mean, he's already wearing purple. So it heavily just depends on how far are you willing to take it without it losing its identity as well. Because like, obviously, you can make a certain series more violent and stuff like that, but you don't want it to lose its identity either. Because if you do it too much, then you're just kind of like whatever. So you have to find the balance for it. Because that's how a lot of horror movies kind of lose their identity when it becomes a little bit too actiony. Kind of like what happened with Resident Evil for a while, because like after 4, that was when pretty much 5 through 6 became more action based and less scary. And so that's why it was good when 7 went back to being more horror based. And it still had its action moments after a certain point, but a lot of the beginning of the game is what captures you. Kind of depends on where you want to go with it, because you can make them horror and cartoony at the same time. It just depends on how you go about it, because like, you don't want to do too cartoony, because then you might end up like the situation with RoboCop 3, I think it was, where one of the characters basically inflates and he just explodes at the very end, and it was just kind of like weird. Because if you've seen RoboCops 1 and 2, you'd be sitting there going like, why on earth was that a thing? And granted, I think that character was a machine, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But it was still just kind of weird. And they kind of did that in Chucky with the second movie, but at least that like made sense given the character and like his physical state at the time. So it's just one of those things where you just got to find a balance, and you got to see if it like works in universe for what you're trying to do. So like, for example, let's just say we're trying to go after the animatronics and take them down or whatever, and let's just say in Chica's case, she gets like pumped with like let's just say there's like a vat of like pizza flavored goo or slime or whatever, and like the main character crams that into Chica's stomach or mouth and it just pulls the lever. You could make that work and it would make sense, especially in Chica's case, because that'd be a sense of irony. But if you were to do that to say like Bonnie, that would make less sense. So it does depend on what characters you do stuff like that too. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you just gotta think about it. You can't just throw it in there. Giant food statue would heavily depend on the scenario. Because you'd have to know what the hell the purpose of the statue was to begin with when you first see it, or if it's just like a creature or something that ends up showing up. But yeah, like again, you just gotta make it make sense. But yeah, there's definitely a way to make it cartoony and scary at the same time. Because like even because like Willy's Wonderland Willy's Wonderland and the Banana Splits movies had their moments of being a little cartoony but violent at the same time. Especially with Banana Splits, where one of the characters pretends to do a magic act and then ends up cutting the person in half and for real, because that worked based on what it was trying to do. And let's see, might have to change this because it doesn't make sense where it is. Yeah, like you don't want to do too much gore either. Like you can have gore, but you also have to like, you know, hold back from just overflowing the entire thing with gore. Because that's like what a lot of people do when they try to make it, like when they try to take trailers and be like, oh, here's this trailer, but we made it more mature or more violent or something. And they just put like an over excessive amount of gore, blood and gore for some reason. And it's like not making it scarier, is just making it bloodier for like no real reason. Because like when you watch a horror movie, you want to be frightened. You don't want to just see an overabundance of blood and gore when it doesn't help the theme of the series or whatever. Like you want to be scared, you don't want to just be grossed out. Because blood and gore is fine, but you just gotta bounce it out. Yeah, you just gotta find the balance between being cartoony and being violent. And exactly, yeah, it's about like fart jokes. Like I don't know why, but like nearly every kiddie or cartoon-based movie, like Ninja Turtles or Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever, or even Transformers, I think had something similar. But like every single one, or maybe not every single one, but a good chunk of them assume that, okay, this is a movie made for kids, or at least we're saying it's made for kids, even though we're adding in mature jokes too. But they'll always toss in like a fart for some fucking reason. And I'm just like, why? Why did this need to be here? Because they did it in Ninja Turtles, they did it in Sonic. I think they did something similar in Transformers. It was either a fart joke or a pee joke. And I'm just like, why? And yes, I know it's like, well, kids think it's funny. And it's like, kids will think literally anything is funny. That doesn't mean you should use it. Just make it make sense and they'll laugh. But like, honestly, to me, tossing in a fart joke or whatever just means you ran out of ideas a long time ago. At least to me, because it's like it would be completely unnecessary for you to use it. Some like even the timing is like for a fart joke and all that. It would heavily depend on the scenario, but a lot of the time they just put them in a situation, make it happen, and then it's like over and done with. And it was like pretty much for nothing, really. Or at least a good chunk of the time it's for nothing. And let's fix this. Close your eyes. Like in the Ninja Turtles case, it was they got stuck in like a tunnel or something, and then suddenly Michelangelo farts. And they're all just like, ah, Mikey. And he's like, sorry, guys. And just like, what was the point of that? Why did this need to be here? And then in Sonic's case, it was during the hotel scene where Sonic's, doing Fortnite bullshit. And then suddenly they're like, I think they were doing armpit noises or whatever, but then Sonic decides to do like an actual fart. And I was just like, what was this here for? And I guess they were trying to say like, well, Sonic's still a kid or something. I was like, is he? Like, this doesn't feel like something he would be doing. But again, at that point, it's just I treat all those properties as like separate continuity, obviously, because they're different versions of those characters. So it's just one of those things you just kind of have to tune out. Yeah, forced humor does kill it. And again, I'm coming from like a perspective that I've grown up with these characters, with a lot of these characters for ages. So seeing them not stick to their character, or at least go off to a point where they're doing something they wouldn't actually do regardless of which version I'm looking at, that's when it starts to irk me a bit. Because then I'm just looking at like, okay, this was a joke that wasn't even needed. Like, no matter what version of the character I'm looking at, it was just a joke that wasn't necessary. That was a good movie, Dinosaur. Or we are back. Okay, did all that. And again, comedy is mostly subjective, but there's like some patterns that you can notice where you're just kind of like, this didn't need to happen. But it mostly just falls in the lines where people think they know what kids like, not remembering that they too were kids, and it's like, guys, it's not really that difficult to figure out what a kid likes. Most of the time they like what adults like. That's why certain things become more popular for kids, or that's why certain films that were made for adults will make toys and all that for kids, despite the series being for adults. Like, Terminator. I was like, here's Terminator. This is a clearly an adult movie with lots of violence and stuff like that. We're gonna make a bunch of toys for kids. I'm like, wait, what? Because I remember getting like Terminator toys and like the Borg from Star Trek and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, clearly this is not for kids. And I only watched like a bit of Star Trek here and there, so I only barely knew what the Borg was growing up. But they had all that stuff for kids, and it just made it funny nowadays when I think about it. I was like, huh, why did they make that stuff for kids when it was clearly not for them? And then, to be fair, those figures could have been made for adults too, and just affordable enough for a kid to get it. That could have been a thing. But then it was just funny when they made RoboCop the cartoon series. And I was just like, oh, okay, guess we're doing it this way. And the same thing goes for like Beetlejuice when you think about that character. It's like, okay, if you watch the original movie, Beetlejuice was definitely not a kid's character. Especially what he tried to do with Lydia. But then you have the cartoon version, and him and Lydia are just like good best friends. And then it just makes me laugh. I was like, haha, he tried to marry you. Or forces marriage on her. Oh yeah, the Flintstones ad with City Res. Yeah, I've seen those. I still have the cartoon of Donald Duck fighting Japan. And then of course there's that Donald Duck cartoon where him and Daisy go out to eat, and a stray pea falls between Daisy's breasts, and Goofy tries to pick it out, or he makes the attempt to pick it out before something else happens. So yeah, like I'm not oblivious to the adult jokes. I don't even think I was oblivious to them growing up. I think I noticed them very easily. But again, like, I grew up with a lot of content being watched, such as, like, you know, well, not only do you watch, but read too, like comics and stuff. So like X-Men, Spawn, Transformers, Terminator, RoboCop, Chucky, Aliens, basically just go down the damn list. So me noticing those things was a lot easier to spot. Some of them not so easy, because some jokes were pretty subtle in certain cartoons, like Rocko's Modern Life. For some of their jokes was not as noticeable until you watch it again when you're older, and then you're like, oh, they were at a sex motel. Oh yeah. There was a lot of products that people didn't really consider back then. Let's fix this. Like the case with the guy who kept using radiated water for his I think he had like shoulder pain or something at the time, and he was told by a doctor to take that kind of medicine, which was basically just radiated water. And even after he felt better, he kept taking the water because he felt energized and stuff from taking it. And then at some point, because of how radiated his body had become, his jaw ended up falling off. So yeah, that was a thing. And I think, I mean, he's already passed away now, but I think they said that his grave is still had to be encased in lead because of how much radiation his body was still giving off. And I think his body is still doing it today, or to this day. Oh yeah, the lead paint for children's toys. Yeah, there was just a lot of mistakes when it came to some children's toys. Like the super soaker that shot white goo. That shit was funny. Like I only saw the commercial like a handful of times, but when I saw it, I just laughed. I was just like, I already knew I was gonna get recalled, so I just sat there waiting. Gas powered pogo stick, probably. I could see that happening. It's like it sounds good on paper, but then when you put it into practice, especially with a child who doesn't know the limitations of the device or what they should and should not be doing, as well as just them being dumb, not, you know, paying attention, then it's just going to cause a problem. So it's better to just make it as basic as fuck as you can, rather than having an accident happen. But they are bound to happen, so all you can really do is do what you can to keep them safe. Okay, I'll put a little bit of shiny on her feathers, but let me first do her legs. She's almost done. Gotta do her nails too. Because I think once I'm done coloring her, I'm just gonna call it for tonight, because I can do the background a little later, which shouldn't take me too long. But this picture will be up tomorrow once I get everything ready for the drive. And if I have time, I might start working on the next pic for it, like just the line art, just to preview it and all that. And then we'll see where this drive goes. Back in my day, we didn't have all these fancy video games. We had a Slinky, 2 Slinkies, and a rock the whole cul-de-sac. And we had to share the rock. To be fair, a Slinky was awesome. I had a few of those. Especially the metal ones. Metal Slinky was the best. Oh yeah, log. Yeah, untangling them sucked. Because you'll sit there and be like, I don't even know how the fuck this thing got tangled, but it did. I think if I ever got a Slinky nowadays, I would do everything in my power to make sure it stayed untangled. Like I put it in a fucking case or something just to prevent it from moving around too much. But like, no, this is like a kid will see my Slinky. He's like, "Oh my god, Slinky!" Like, no, this is mine. You can have this one. They give them like the plastic one, the shitty plastic one. And if I felt bold enough, I would do what Ace Ventura did and find like the biggest steps and take a Slinky there. I still laugh at that scene in the movie. He's like, "Oh, it was right there. Can we do it again?" Oh yeah, the Slinky that catches on fire. That shit was funny. What was that? Was that The Simpsons? I can't remember if that was The Simpsons or the or Family Guy. I'm pretty sure it was Slim. I want to say it was The Simpsons because everything caught fire in that show. Yeah, that scene always made me laugh too. He's like, "It's a Slinky, it's Slinky, everyone loves a Slinky." No, it was right there. Can I do it again? Part of me wanted to see if they like actually let the Slinky do it and see how far it got. And I would be amazed if it actually went down all the steps, and then for the movie they just like stopped it or just like did a different cut to make it look like it didn't make it. I should look that up. I should look up if there was like a removed scene or something, or a behind the scenes, because that shit would be funny. Okay, we're pretty much done with Chica. Just gotta do some finishing touches. But yeah, Chica's pretty much done. I just gotta do a background, which is gonna be the same type of background as the other waking drives. I'm just gonna grab an image relevant to her situation. So probably something FNAF related, or if I have to, I'll just make it myself. But yeah, she's pretty much done. Think I'm gonna call it for tonight. Thank you everybody for coming. If I can, I will try to stream again tomorrow. If not, then I'm just gonna spend the rest of the week working on comic pages, and then I will see you guys again on Tuesday. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Hopefully the weight gain drive goes well and can see what I decide to do to Chica. But yeah, thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a good night. All right, you guys take care. Bye bye.